Hi, this is Paolo with Preta 3D, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use ACSEL in Reality 2. Now, before we start using ACSEL, we have to understand why you should use it. The why is very simple actually. If you look at how you convert objects, models, 3D models, from one program to the other, let's say from Studio to Carrara, for example, that I use for some time. These are two programs from the same company, from DES. Well, when you move an object like this radio here, this old World War II radio, and you move it from Studio to, for example, Carrara, you're doing two things. You're moving the object itself, so the geometry, but then you also have to convert the shaders. A shader is a procedure, if you want. It's an algorithm, it's a set of rules that defines a material. Now, the shaders are actually the more complex part because the geometry is very clearly defined. It's basically a series of polygons, and polygons are in a certain position in the world. There is not much to do there. X, Y, Z, it's X, Y, Z. Well, when it comes to shaders though, it's a completely different story because each program uses a different or slightly different or completely different set of rules. So for example, even when you're converting from Studio to Carrara, there are many adjustments that need to be done. Now, when you're talking about something like from Studio to Lux, where Lux has physically modeled materials like metal and glass, and Studio has none of them. Studio doesn't have an idea of glass, volumetric glass, or metal. So when you're converting from these two completely different entities, it becomes extremely complex. Now, Reality does a very good job at this. I spent an incredible amount of time in refining the algorithms that convert the Studio materials into Lux materials. But there are limits to what a program can do. And especially when we are talking about the field of visual art. Our eye, our judgment, our impression, the way the object feels, well, you can't quite categorize that. It's part of the artistic sensibility. And so when I was faced with this dilemma, how can we make this conversion process as good as possible? I saw that it was basically coming to two steps. The first one is to convert the bulk of the material, so the texture and kind of the quality of the materials. Other is to fine-tune it and basically decide as a person, as an artist, what is appropriate. Well, all this is good because it's part of the artistic process. What is not good is to do the same thing over and over and over and over. What that means is that if you're using this radio here, well, let's say I just bought this model from DES, and I bought it because I'm planning on using a few different scenes. I don't know. Today I'm going to use it for a recreation of a war scene, and tomorrow I might just use it for something completely different, like a situation where somebody goes to an antique store and sees this old radio. So the point is that I might have multiple situations where I reuse this object, and potentially I would do the same thing over and over again. I would have to convert the materials from the default converted by Reality to something a little more sophisticated. Well, that is the part I wanted to avoid. That is the part I wanted to say, if I do it once, that's it. I don't need to do it more than one time. So that is what ACSEL is for you. Basically, you refine your materials, and when you're set, you're thinking that that material is as good as it gets. Then you say, you know what, ACSEL, take a snapshot of the configuration to this point and use it from now on. That is what ACSEL means, is the automatic custom shader loader. And what that means is that it automatically loads a shader for a certain model that you have customized. You do it once, and from that point on, that's it. Yeah, you can change it, but you don't need to explicitly change those parameters. You don't even need to explicitly load a certain preset. That's the A in ACSEL is for automatic. It happens by magic. So this is the model that we are going to use for our demonstration today. It's a beautiful World War II era radio, which is made of very heavy steel. This is an object that was created before the invention of transistors. This is early 40s, 1940s. So you can imagine a very solid military grade metal box with some vacuum tubes inside, some electric wires, no transistors. This was a very hefty object. Something we need to keep in mind just to be sure that we convey the right feel for it. The object is enclosed inside a cube, which is providing a good environment, a good simple environment for indirect lighting. And there is one simple mesh light that is right here, lighting the scene. All right. So first of all, let me show you the before and after. So the before render is where the materials converted automatically by Reality using the information available from Studio. And the after render is the one that we obtain after modifying, after customizing the materials. So let's get started calling Reality. There you go. And here we have all our materials, which are normally, as often happens, converted to glossy. Now, glossy is a great material, but this radio is a piece of metal, not a piece of plastic. So we will need to change things quite a bit. Before we do that, let me show you an interesting option here in the advanced options. I turned on the Show Surfaces tab when Reality starts. That means is that whenever I click now on a material, I see that material selected in Studio, which is a great help when you customize materials. And you also see the same material selected in the Surfaces tab of Studio. And in that way, you can also take a look at the original parameters and see if that can help you. All right. So first of all, I'm gonna reorder this list by the owner. The owner is the object that owns the material. And in this way, we can just isolate the cube, the room, and be sure that we're not working on it, and we just focus, we concentrate on our radio. Now, the vast majority of these materials are all metal. Now, there is an exception for the face panel because that is generally another type of material that is painted with some information about the radio frequencies. Unfortunately, this radio doesn't have a separate glass pane. Normally there would be a glass pane between the faceplate and the face panel. Unfortunately, it's not part of this model. But anyway, let's just do a quick conversion of all these materials, except a few ones like this face panel. Let's convert all these materials to metal. So I'm going to just select the first one and then shift click to the last one, which selects all the materials. And I'm going to deselect the face panel. And to do this, I'm pressing the Command key on the Macintosh or the Control key on Windows. So while I'm pressing that key, then I click on the material that I want to exclude, in this case, the face panel. Then we probably also want to remove the knobs, because those are generally made of a plastic-like material. Don't know what they were using in World War II, but you know, it's kind of a plastic material. And let's see, that's it. That's pretty much it. So with these materials selected, we convert the material type to metal. And here we are. So metal, metal. Now, let me just group the materials by material type, clicking on the header for material. And in this way, we have all the metal materials listed together, which makes things a lot easier. So what I want to do here now is to enable this custom metal option, because the custom metal part has the original texture, which I want to reuse. It's a nice, good, rusty texture. Why not? Yeah. So instead of doing it one by one, I'm going to select the first material of the list, click on the last one, and then click on custom metal. So now all the materials have been enabled to be custom metal with a texture. Good. Now, let's see. I'm going to just select the list again and bring the polish up to 8000. It needs to be a little shinier. Okay? And in fact, we got a good amount of metal shine. And lastly, I want to change the bump map here to be quite a bit higher. So 10 times higher, and actually double that. And the same is for the positive, and that will give us a good, nice, you know, battered, a little bit rusted material, something that it had some life. Now maybe we need to change things for a few smaller components, like that switch here, but we'll see. Let's do a first render here and see what happens. Now, what I don't want to do is to use this displacement. We don't need any displacement for this. So we're going to just erase it. It's not going to do any good for us. And it's looking pretty good. All right. What do you think if we do a quick render and see what happens, how it works, huh? Let's check our parameters here, and that looks pretty good. So quick render frame and see what happens. See at what point we are here. And I know that I need to set my shutter to be 1/8 of a second, and that looks actually rather good. I know it's all pixelated, it's all quite grainy, but I can see already that it looks rather nice. So one thing I can see immediately is that these knobs are just too grayish, and I don't like the effect. But I can see that the bump map is really good. So let's switch back to Studio and find the knobs. Here they are. And yes, in fact, the specular color is way too high. This is really a common issue with materials coming from Studio, and you know, we try to do the best possible conversion, but sometimes these values are just unreal. So let's bring this down, and the reason is simple. As you can see from here, see how much light is reflected by this knob. With a high value, when the brightness of this color is way high, basically uses the brightness to compute how much of the light is reflected by that material. In this case, you know, that would be 50% of the light. That's way too much. Plastic doesn't shine in that way. So let's bring it down quite a bit. And you know, 9,000 almost to the max. 9,000 is way too high. This is a period piece. We assume it had some life, has been scratched, dragged in several situations. So, you know, it cannot be that pristine. Let's bring this down to a more reasonable value. Okay, so let's see the difference. Now let me stop this and start another render while the old one is still in the background. Okay, we're gonna change this to 1/8. Okay, so you can immediately see the difference between the knobs. These are much nicer. They should be a little more battered, but it's okay. We are now gonna nitpick at this point. Okay, actually the knobs have both a displacement map and a bump map. So you know what? I'm gonna close this. And I'm going to close, actually stop this. So the bump map, you know what? I'm gonna bring this up as I did for the others, so that actually I think that will be a little too much, so just do this. And the displacement map, wow, it's too much, 200%, way too high. And let's try this. Let's use the micro facets and get our subdivision to something around 150. Okay, we stop this so we can do a quick comparison. Let's see what happens. It's taking a little longer to render the very first frame because now we have quite a bit of displacement, but not too bad. But I don't see much of a difference there, if any, between these two knobs. I don't see any difference. So let's see the map here. Texture. So displacement map. This displacement map doesn't do anything. I don't know what's the intention here, but this is just gray. So maybe, I don't know what was the idea here. Definitely, this is not going to do anything. So you know what? Let's just get rid of it. And that just adds memory and doesn't benefit us at all. On the other hand, I can see that the bump map definitely needs more. And let's see this and double check the bump map to be sure that we're... But it is very, very, very subtle. It's just a little... It's okay. It's actually good. Yeah, that's the way it should be. So let's close this guy and let's close this guy too and see if we get any kind of surface movement for the knobs. If it works, works. If it doesn't, you can try on your own. And it might have something, and probably it requires a little more rendering there. One trick also to use in this case is that bump map becomes more obvious if the glossiness is higher. So let's bring this up to 8500 and see if we gain anything from it. Should definitely change these parameters. In reality, it's 100, 180, and f5.6. So in the camera exposure controls, we're gonna go for 100 ISO, 1/8 shutter speed and f5.6. There you go. All right, I think I'm seeing something, and I like this. I think that I let it cook for a while, and I think this is the right amount of bump, of the right amount of metal to shine. So we're gonna wrap it up at this point, and I'll see you in part 2, in which I will show you how to take this setup and save it as an ACSEL shader set. All right, see you in part 2.